Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay, originally entitled The Honourable Historie of Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay, is an Elizabethan-era stage play, a comedy written by Robert Greene. Widely regarded as Greene's best and most significant play, it has received more critical attention than any other of Greene's dramas. History. The date of authorship of Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay cannot be fixed with certainty on the basis of the available evidence. The play is normally dated to the 1588–92 period. 1589 may be the single most likely year. A line in the play's opening scene, "Next Friday is St. James Fix's Street. James's Day is a Friday," which was true in 1589. Some critics argue that the magic in Greene's play was inspired by the magic in Marlowe's Dr. Faustus, which if valid would mean that FBFB must postdate Faustus. Greene's play also has relationships with several other plays of its era, most notably Frier. Yet since none of the plays in question can be dated with absolute certainty, the nature of the relationships among them are open to question and cannot resolve the pertinent dating issues. The title page of the play's first edition asserts that FBFB was originally acted by Queen Elizabeth's men, as were several of Greene's other plays, when that company entered a period of difficulties in the early 1590s. The play appears to have passed into the control of theatre manager and impresario Philip Henslowe, and thereafter to have been performed by Henslowe-connected acting troupes. Lord Strange's men performed the play on the 19th of February 1592 at the Rose Theatre. It was acted again by a combination of the Queen's men and Sussex's men on the 1st of April 1594. The play then passed into the repertory of the Admiral's men. That company paid Thomas Middleton to write a prologue and epilogue for a court performance in 1602. FBFB was entered into the Stationers' Register on the 14th of May 1594, and was published later that year in quarto by the bookseller Edward White. The title page assigns the play to Greene. A second quarto was issued in 1630 by Elizabeth Auld. The Q2 title page states that the play was lately played by the Principality in his servants, the Admiral's men, in a later incarnation. A third quarto followed in 1655 from Jean Bell. Contemporary allusions indicate that the play was even more popular than its limited publication. History indicates references to the play are common in the literature of the era. Plot. Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay is recognized as a groundbreaking play in terms of multiple plot structure. It has 3 plots, or 2 or 4, depending on different scholars' analyses. Prince Edward, the son and heir of King Henry III, plans to seduce Margaret, the fair maid of Fressingfield, with the help of the necromancer Friar Bacon. Edward also employs a more conventional approach, relying on the eloquence of his friend Earl Lacy to help with the seduction. Lacy goes to persuade Margaret, but quickly falls in love with her himself. When Edward learns of the love of Lacy and Margaret, he threatens to kill his friend before he masters his passion and reconciles himself to the fact. Edward returns to court, where he falls in love with and marries Eleanor of Castile, the bride his father has chosen for him. The beautiful Margaret is the unwilling cause of a quarrel between 2 of her neighbours, the Suffolk squires Silsby and Lambert. They both fancy themselves in love with her, and kill each other in a duel. Margaret receives a letter from the absent Lacy, renouncing his love for her. She decides to enter a nunnery, but Lacy intercepts her before she takes her vows, and tells her that he was only testing her constancy. After an understandable hesitation, Margaret accepts Lacy's conduct and his explanation. They are married together with Edward and Eleanor at the end of the play. Another level of plot involves Friar Bacon and his magic. Bacon displays a range of magical skills. He shows Edward the romance of Lacy and Margaret in his magic glass, and interrupts the wedding at a distance. He magically transports a tavern hostess from one place to another. He wins a contest of magic with a German named Vandermast, witnessed by the kings of England and Castile and the Emperor of Germany. In collaboration with another magician, Friar Bungay, Bacon labors toward his greatest achievement, the creation of an artificial head made of brass, animated by demonic influence that can surround England with a protective wall of the same metal. Yet Bacon's inability to remain awake and the incompetence of his servant Miles spoil the opportunity. Finally, Bacon inadvertently allows two young Oxonians to witness the father's duel in the magic glass. In response, the students themselves duel and kill each other. Appalled by this outcome, Bacon renounces magic and turns to a life of repentance. His bad servant Miles, haunted by Bacon's conjured devils, gets a promise of a tapster's job in hell from one of them, and rides to perdition on the devil's back. Sequel. The anonymous manuscript play John of Bordeaux, or the second part of Friar Bacon, is a sequel to FBFB, written to build upon the success of the original play. The John of Bordeaux is annotated by prompters, mentions the name of John Holland, an actor who was with Lord Strange's men in the early 1590s. This has suggested to some researchers that the Friar Bacon play acted by Strange's men on the 19th of February 1592 was this second part of the story rather than the original FBFB. Modern performances. The story was redone for children in 1905 as Roger Bacon and the Brazen Head for James Baldwin's 30 More Famous Stories Retold. In 2013, television actor David Oakes directed the play at Shakespeare's Globe as part of the Read Not Dead season. The cast was as follows: Edward, Prince of Wales; Michael Marcus Lacy, Earl of Lincoln; Jordan Metcalfe Warren, Earl of Sussex; Robert Hurd ERMSBY Namp, Devil Pete Basham, Ralph Simnel; Martin Hodgson Friar Roger Bacon; James Wallace Miles; Eleanor Lawless Burdin and Amp, the Keeper of Fressingfield; Helen Bradbury, Mason and Amp, SERLSBY; Rob Heaps Clement and Amp, Lambert Freddie Hutchins; A Woman and Amp, Joan and Amp, the Keeper's Friend and Amp, Constable Becky Todd; Margaret, daughter of the Keeper of Fressingfield; Fran Marshall Thomas and Amp, First Scalar and Amp, Brazen Head Nathan Medina; Richard and Amp, Second Scalar; Heather Dutton; King Henry III; Alex Lanner Peck and the Postboy and Amp, the Emperor of Germany; Adam Ewan, the King of Castile; David May; Princess Eleanor, his daughter Deirdre Mullins; Jacques Vandermast, a German magician; Mark Gustavine; Friar Bungay; Matt Houlihan. Additions: The Honourable Historie of Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay, London. Edward White, 1594, reproduced in facsimile 1914 by the Tudor Facsimile Texts. The Honourable Historie of Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay, London. Elizabeth Auld, 1630. The Honourable History of Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay, London. Jean Bell, 1655. Gailey, Charles Mills, ed. Edition of The Honourable History of Friar Bacon, Representative English Comedies, From the Beginnings to Shakespeare, New York. Reprinted 1916 by Norwood Press for the Macmillan Co. pp. 433-502. Guild, T.E. Al. eds. Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay, Urbana. The English Club, an abridgment of Professor Gailey's edition. Harrison, G.B. ed. The Honourable History of Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay, The Fortune Play Books, London, Westminster Press for Robert Holding and Amp Co. The supposed 1599 edition, sometimes encountered, is simply a mistaken copy of Mrs. Auld's 1630 edition.